Welcome back to my channel. So today's video we're going to be discussing that age-old debate of buying versus renting. I know a lot of people are always curious, is it better for me to continue to rent or should I buy? Is it a waste of time? So I'm going to discuss just some of the pros and cons, let you know the differences of buying a house in 2020 versus renting in 2020. So stay tuned. Before I go any further, of course, you guys, I have to ask, please make sure you like, comment, subscribe. Make sure you do follow me on my social media. It's going to be linked down below, and stay connected. All right, so just to kick this off, we're going to start with the rental side of things, and I'm going to let you know some of the pros, the good things about renting. So when you are renting, I'll say the major good thing I've noticed is a pretty quick turnaround time. So if something happens or you have a drastic situation that happens in your life, you can get into a new apartment fairly quickly or a new house fairly quickly for renting within less than a month. It should honestly take about a couple weeks. So that is a pretty decent pro about renting. Another pro with renting is there's typically a lot less out-of-pocket money that's going to be required for you, especially when you're moving in. You typically pay just a deposit, and it's usually not too crazy, less than a couple $1,000s, depending on your area, of course, and the price point of where you're renting. And another amazing thing is if you do live like in an apartment or even in a house, you have less maintenance to worry about. So if anything breaks down, anything like that, you definitely have people that you can call to come fix it, and it will cost you nothing. And for those in Florida, you guys know we have hurricanes like every single year. Again, in case of anything super drastic happening, typically you're not gonna have to spend that much money towards repairs, if any money at all, because maintenance handles that and your renter's insurance covers the rest. So that's pretty good. The next pro you have with renting is you do have a lot more freedom and flexibility in terms of if you need to move real quick, you get a job offer elsewhere. You can either already be on a short-term lease, you can do like a month-to-month lease, or worst case scenario, if you need to, you can break your lease and move, and there are not too many consequences for that. And on top of that, you don't have to pay any real estate taxes. All right, and then my last pro for renting, depending on where you live and the type of community you're in, is some of these places can have incredible amenities. I've lived in communities where we have beautiful, huge resort-style pools. A lot of places typically have a pretty decent fitness center. If you don't want to pay for another like gym membership, you have that available to you. There's usually a clubhouse. My last place I was renting in, it always had like awesome things like Taco Tuesdays or Wine Down Wednesdays. So I would say these are things you typically can find a lot, depending on your area, of course, as far as like amenities, that can kind of make renting a lot more fun. And then of course we have the downside, the cons to renting. So first on the list, probably the most frustrating for a lot of people, is your landlord or your apartment complex. They can increase the price of your rent at any time, and they don't really have to give you notice about it. Or if you try to renew your lease, all of a sudden you're paying $50 to $100 or even $200 more, which is ridiculous. Another con is that when you're paying your monthly rental fees, you are not building any sort of equity. If anything, you're just paying your landlord's mortgage, building that equity for them, and you're kind of getting nothing out of it except a place to live. I know specifically for Orlando, it is quite expensive to rent here. Obviously not like New York or LA expensive, but it's pretty pricey out here. And it's like, if you're gonna be paying such amount of money towards this monthly fee, you want to at least get something out of that. I hope that makes sense. So that is something that for me specifically motivates me, is it's so expensive to rent. For this same amount of what I'm paying here, I could be putting that towards a house, building that equity that'll work for me in the future. All right, and another con is when you live in an apartment or you're a house, when you're renting, you have less freedom when it comes to what you can do. So there are certain places that have pet restrictions where you can't have any pets at all, or you can only have certain type of pets, and you normally have to pay a ridiculous fee or deposit to be able to live with your pets. Another thing that I know affects especially some people like my sister, she's huge into DIY stuff. You cannot do projects in the house, you cannot renovate or change anything, you have to keep it as is, or there are consequences to that, or you have to pay fines for just changing things up. So if you do like the freedom to be able to do things like this, you cannot do that when you're renting. So that is a major con. And last but not least, another con with renting is that with your landlord, they can evict you at any time. They can put your house up for sale at any time with no regards to whether or not you're in there or what your opinions about it. Is still their house. You do not own that house. And of course, you're always bound to the terms and agreements of your lease. So these are all the reasons I would say that are the downside to renting. All right, so now we're gonna get into the pros and cons of buying a house. So this pro is going to be specific to the 2020 market and what's going on right now, which is that interest rates are historically low, like the lowest that they've ever been, even in some places as low as the mid twos. So those who have the income and have the credit are taking advantage right now, and the prices of houses are pretty steady right now as well. They are projected to increase, so this one is very specific to what's going on right now. In general terms though, when it comes to the pros of renting a house, first up, I will say that there is more stability and protection. Everyone knows the window that we're in right now. A lot of people do not know where their incomes are going to be coming from. A lot of people lost their jobs or surviving off unemployment. When you're paying a mortgage, you have certain protections. So while you can lose your home eventually, your home can be foreclosed on. It's usually a longer process versus when you're renting, you don't pay your rent for a while and then you can get evicted. So you do have certain protections, which leaves you a bit more stable. You have extra time to plan. So the next pro is that buying a house is definitely an investment. You can buy a home and you do not have to wait for your dream home. You can start a home, live in it in a few years, build up that equity. You can rent it out. You can eventually fix it up again and flip it. So yeah, you can go into the investing side of owning a home or pay it off, leave it for other generations to come. All right, so another pro is that when you own your home, you have pretty much total freedom over what you can do, what you want to do with the house indoors. So as far as if you wanted to renovate your kitchen, your bathroom, if you wanted to put wallpaper, if people are still into that, you have total freedom and control over that. Typically you have that on the outside as well. I know there's some neighborhoods that may have like HOAs that they want it to stick to a specific look, but they're usually not that restrictive. But yeah, so pretty good pro is that you have freedom. Another pro is that you do have tax benefits for being a homeowner. So you can write off your mortgage interest payments. You can file for a homestead, so that's also giving you extra savings when it comes to property taxes. And the best part with that is as you're paying for your house, paying towards that loan, as I mentioned earlier, you're also building that equity. So financially, it is a good move to make. And last but not least, for my pros is when you own a home, you definitely have a lot more privacy. You don't have people in your face. You don't have people below you or above you just being loud, waking you up at all hours of the night. And especially if your houses are a little bit spread a little bit further apart, you have a lot less disturbances from your neighbors as well, which is amazing. All right, and we are not biased here. There is definitely a downside to being a homeowner. So here are some of the cons. First up, I would say being a homeowner gives you a lot more responsibility, and depending on your self-control, your character, whatever, that could be either good or bad. So those responsibilities that you would have, there's definitely maintenance. So if your your garbage disposal breaks down, your refrigerator breaks down, or anything breaks down really, you are going to be responsible for those repairs. You're going to have to hire people to come fix your plumbing, look at that. Unless your HOA covers like lawn care, you're going to have to make sure you keep up with the outside maintenance of your home. Stuff like AC repairments, all of that, you're basically like, that's all you're kind of be prepared for that. Another con when it comes to being a homeowner is you do have less mobility when it comes to just picking up and moving. If you're someone who loves to travel and loves to travel for a long time and you own a home, you might have difficulties when it comes to that, because again, a house does need to be somewhat maintained. So if you're gonna do things like that, you need to make sure you either are gonna rent out your home, make sure someone's looking after it, or you might have to sell your house. So you do have some limitations when it comes to the amount of freedom that you have when it comes to just picking up and taking off. Another con that we have is that you do pay property. You do pay property taxes on a home, and those can sometimes fluctuate. Those can actually increase every single year, just depending again on what's going on in your economy, your market. So that can be a added annoyance, I would say, to home ownership. And last but not least, depending on your market, where you're at, depending what's going on with the economy, while real estate is an investment, everyone knows there is a risk to investing. So the value of your home can actually decrease over time instead of increase. So just be aware of that. Know your area, know your market, do your research. And don't, nothing's permanent, nothing's always for sure. Just always keep that in mind. It is an investment, and with every investment, there's risk. All right, guys, so those are some of the differences from renting versus owning, some of the pros and cons. It's going to be completely up to you which avenue you think is best for you, your family, and your lifestyle. I would say, depending on your market and where you're at, if you look at the price difference between renting every month and paying a mortgage every month, while you may not even really be in that far off of a difference or price range, you have to decide what's important to you over what you're getting out of that money that you're paying every month. Hope that makes sense. So if you're going to be paying $1,800 a month and you're paying that towards a mortgage and getting that equity, that's super important to you, buy a house. Or if you want to pay that same amount, but you like those amenities that you can get, or you like the freedom of being able to just take off and leave, then renting is where you're at. So you guys can decide. And that's it, guys. So stay tuned for my next video, and be sure to check out my previous videos. I will link them somewhere here once I figure out how to do that. If there's any topics that you guys would like me to cover or any questions, please make sure to comment down below. As always, like, share, comment, subscribe, and I will see you in the next video.